Hey everyone, this is People of Substance by LemonSkies. Thrilled to welcome my guest today, Jen Newmeyer, just like Oscar Mayer, but new and improved. That's how she's going to pronounce it. Jen works at PBS, Public Broadcast, and she oversees digital fundraising strategy, which we'll get into. Jen is one of those people that I've known the name for a lot longer than I've known the person. So I'm just really excited to welcome you.
Why, thanks, Olga. I know, we have crossed digital paths, I think, so many times. And so I was just so delighted to run into you a couple of weeks ago at a dinner. So it was really great to connect face to face.
And I think as the crow flies, you and I are probably within 4, 5, 6 mile radius between the two of us.
I know. And that's crazy, too. It is wild.
So I will start out by asking you, I ask this question a lot because there's so many people in our space that come from all walks of life. How did you end up in nonprofit sector? Was it by design, or was it happenstance, or took a wrong turn at Albuquerque?
Right. Like many nonprofit professionals and fundraisers, it was not by design. I actually was in the travel industry before I came into nonprofits, and I worked for United Airlines very, very early in my career. Worked at several hotels, visitors bureaus, those kinds of things. And I had relocated to San Francisco, and I took an office job. And the industry just happened to be working with nonprofits, national nonprofits across the country. It was an association management firm for those nonprofits who were in the combined federal campaign. So that's really how I got into working with donor acknowledgements, donor names, working with organizations themselves, training them. I mean, this was back in the day. So we had donor names on diskette. That was like the newest, fanciest thing that we were providing to nonprofits, instead of like sending them a packet full of papers of donor names from these campaigns all across the country. So that's how I got into it. And then, I just sort of kept growing from there. I went to an arts council. I worked on a public art event in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then I took a job at a food bank. And so I was with the food bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina for 10 years. And that's really where I built sort of my digital fundraising approach and audience cultivation online. And from there, then I went into the public media sector. And I've worked with 2 different stations in North Carolina and then Philadelphia, and now at PBS. So total of about 8 years or so. So that's my journey.
So when we stop recording, I'll ask you about cultural differences between stations and the 2 cities.
So, yes, I'll be happy to share.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, so in addition to all your nonprofit work you've been doing, you've been involved for a long time in our industry. So with fundraising, professional association, with AFP. And it seems like every time I go to conferences, every time I join webinars or planning committees, there's always a very heavy presence from agencies in our industry, and not as many nonprofit professionals are usually at the table. So that's something I've been pondering a lot. And I was curious what you think of what are I have thoughts on what might be reasons behind it, but what do you think of that, and how do we get more nonprofit staff to participate?
Yeah, I really think that agencies prioritize professional development and the connections and the benefit of connecting with other nonprofit professionals at conferences, at with associations, at events with associations. And I think that unfortunately, in nonprofit organizations and those that are really strapped from a budget standpoint, like professional development is one of the first things to be cut. And it's very hard to advocate for the investment in these kinds of things. And some of these conferences are very expensive. Some of the memberships for associations are as well. I mean, even advocating for subscription to the Chronicle of Philanthropy can be, like a battle for budget. So I think that is one of the inherent problems is not being able to really clarify the benefit and put the narrative around the benefit of professional development. But I also think that associations suffer from some of the very same things that nonprofits do from a promotional standpoint. Back in the day when there was so much, involvement with these associations, there was a lot of word of mouth. That's how I found out about the AFP from one of my colleagues that I worked with. That's when I started speaking. And then we went into the digital era. And I think we all really enjoyed the benefit of very strong organic connection on social media and on social platforms. And that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah.
Algorithms get in the way. And so even if you have a really great value proposition from a conference standpoint or from a association standpoint, it's hard to get the word out. So I think those are just sort of two of three, also like at sort of advocating for investment. But I think that those are some of the challenges that we face. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always wonder also if time out of office to volunteer or be involved, if that's a factor for a lot of nonprofits as well.
Yeah, for sure. There are so many, nonprofit professionals that they're avalanched. They have so much on their plate. They're juggling so much that it is hard to kind of set aside that time for, personal, investment in professional development and connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on a brighter note, I know digital space in particular is kind of your home turf. And I think you and I fall into kind of a sliver of nonprofit professionals where we sort of have grown up with digital fundraising alongside it, if you will. What happens if we send out an email and ask people for money to suddenly, much more sophisticated, much more complex systems today? So you've been so leaned into that topic that you wrote a book about it. So
I did.
A little bit about it.
Sure. I actually wrote 2 books about it. My first book came out in January of 2020, unfortunately, right before the pandemic. So the first book was really sort of, more of a guidance to a colleague sort of thing. You're coming into a nonprofit organization and trying to launch a digital fundraising program. Here's some advice on, how you talk about digital fundraising to people who are not familiar with it, some campaign tactics, that kind of thing. But over the years, I've recognized, and even through my own journey, that there's a lot more that goes into the overall digital transformation at an organization. And, so my second book sort of dives into all of the characteristics that are needed within an organization for it to be successful from a digital transformation standpoint. And that, really involves, collaboration, advocating for resources, leadership, not to mention the sort of, technical aspect of things, being able to integrate your CRM, your eCRM, have segmentation and personalization a part of all of your communications to audiences and using automations, and then moving into utilizing, innovation, experimentation, AI, that kind of stuff. So the second book really is a very weighty resource that includes a lot of research. So, that indicates the benefit of really focusing and investing time and resources into, digital fundraising and transformation, online engagement, and audience development.
And that book, I believe, was just published this year, 2025.
It was just available about a month ago. So it is. So my publisher is Civil Sector Press. So it is available on Civil Sector Press website, but also on Amazon.
And we'll drop the link in the comments. With digital transformation, one of the topics that you alluded to that I thought was really interesting is digital maturity and what that means. And I think with nonprofits, there's a vast range of extremely sophisticated enterprise level setup with hyper segmentation and journeys and all sorts of very cool things. And we definitely have a lot of nonprofits that have an email tool that may or may not connect to anything else that's out there. So can you talk a little bit about digital maturity and if you can speak to, if you're mature, like what should you be thinking about? And if you were just at the beginning, what are the priorities you should be focusing on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there are some excellent examples of organizations that are really taking advantage of all of the tools that are out there and available. They're large organizations that have these resources and they recognize the advantage of really implementing them. But I mean, as we know, majority of the nonprofits that are around these at this time, I believe that like 96% of them are operating on a budget of $5 million or less. And I think 80 or 92% of them are $1 million or less in annual revenue. So there are a lot of nonprofits that are struggling with this. So in my book, I talk about digital fundraising maturity in 7 different categories, 7 different characteristics. So the the foundation and your online presence, your campaigns and integrations, collaboration, leadership, metrics, user journeys, those kinds of things. And within each of those categories, I have a series of questions that organizations can ask themselves to kind of check off the boxes, like, yes, we do these things. And they're based on the basic tactics up to very advanced tactics. And so from basic, what I'm talking about is, you should have a website, you should be sending regular emails, you should make sure that your donation form is mobile optimized, some of those strategies. And then it goes all the way to the other end of utilizing AI, utilizing A/B experimentation, ensuring, as I had mentioned before, automations, personalization, that kind of thing, and really drilling down into metrics to analyze the success of not only the campaigns, but the overall strategy of audience growth and retention. So knowing that there are organizations that are on a wide range of the spectrum, I wrote the book in a way that it's very accessible for small nonprofits, but still beneficial to very large ones. So that's really what I mean by digital maturity is where do you fall in that spectrum, and wherever you are, how can you make small improvements to get to the next level?
Well, and that's a helpful way of thinking about it, because if you're barely getting an email out the door, buying commercial grade infrastructure may not be the right move, right? Like you can't just overnight shift it.
Right, exactly. It takes time to build these things. I mean, we all know it takes time to build a social media audience. It takes time to, build your, email subscriber list. And then not only that, it's constantly feeding the fire, like fueling the content that you're providing to your audiences, how often you're sending those newsletters. And then the next, question is, what is the content? Is it valuable? Are you getting the click-throughs? Those kinds of things. So
I think a lot about, and this is probably both personally and professionally, what is your purpose and what is your intent? Because not all channels are necessary, like from my personal life, like TikTok is not a necessity. So where do you invest your time and effort to produce content? Where do you communicate with your constituents, and where really it's just not your playground?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of self-reflection that goes into, who is the audience that we're speaking to and what is the best way to reach them?
So we can have a conversation about digital transformation and digital fundraising without mentioning the two-letter AI, artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And there's a lot of discussion. I'm glad to see about ethics of it. I'm glad to see there's still a lot of fear that AI is coming for everybody's jobs, which I don't personally subscribe to. But where do you see AI fitting into what nonprofits are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the very basic sort of approach to utilizing AI would be sort of the generative AI. So utilizing AI to help craft, really compelling social media posts, helping with email copy, helping with, newsletter copy, and right now, I'm working on an online scavenger hunt for public media stations across the country. And AI has been great in coming up with really clever and fun language for challenges. And, so those kinds of things, trivia questions, those kinds of things. So, but moving, even further, there are nonprofits that have gotten grants for sort of significant AI projects that help with tutoring, that help with, really sophisticated ad strategies to reach new audiences. So I do think that there is a lot of benefit that nonprofits can realize by utilizing AI. And yes, it is going to help streamline some of those tasks that may have been so arduous, like going through spreadsheets and sifting through, lots of, copy to, one thing that our business intelligence group is experimenting with is creating personas from a very large donor study that we did. And so, we surveyed donors across the country, and there's so much data that's a perfect tool for AI to sift through and what kinds of generate 6 different personas, from the feedback that we're getting from all of these donors. What are they interested in? What motivates them to give? What are the ways that they prefer to give? And what kinds of communication strategies would work best with them? So I think that it's just really allowing us to sort of hone in on, some of these communication strategies and really, grow our audiences, grow our expand our missions, and generate more revenue to support our organizations.
I absolutely love this, and especially with PBS, I'd be curious, is it, kind of the period drama, those types of audiences?
Yeah. Right, exactly. So many applications for sifting through a lot of that data to just get at the core of what really excites our audiences. Yeah.
So as we're starting to, I'm just thinking about maturity and kind of the next generation of nonprofit professionals and the trends we're seeing. I guess one question that I've been pondering, and I'm interested in asking peers in the field, young professionals that are entering our field, do they have different expectations than we do? Is there a pipeline of talent? Are we doing enough to replenish kind of the workforce of nonprofit sector? So what are you seeing in your space and organizations that you talk to?
Yeah. I mean, I do think that, younger generations are going to have different expectations just in general from a workplace, what they're expecting from the workplace. I have seen that, one thing that, I really am impressed with the younger generations is there's a real focus on work-life balance, which I think is so important. And I don't know necessarily that was something that I put at the very top of my list way back in the day when I was that age, and where, it was sort of the same, sort of a similar mentality back in the day of just work really hard, and you may have to put in overtime, and there's there, there are things you may have to do on the weekends. And so I really find that very admirable that a lot of the younger folks that are coming into the workplace now just really value and value that work-life balance. I think that's so healthy. As far as pipeline, I do, prior to my coming to PBS, I was at WHYY in Philadelphia, and they did a really incredible job of sort of training programs for high school and college students that would, it was sort of like an extra credit, or maybe it was credit. I can't remember, but they had these programs for students that trained them and on broadcasting, on editing, on production, on even journalism projects, so that as these students were going through school, then they could apply for internships because they had already been involved with WHYY, and we have an internship program here at PBS also, and we've had interns before that I'm still in touch with, and I watch their career development path and help put them in touch with different contacts that I have. So I think in some ways what I have seen is that there has been sort of an intentional cultivation of some of these younger professionals coming into nonprofits, and I hope that will continue, and I hope that will be sort of a standard approach across the sector for for a pipeline for newer professionals coming in to the
Succession
sector.
planning and
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So for just a little bit of fun, to kind of wrap up our conversation, I know this is not from PBS, but from your colleagues on the radio side, I decided to borrow a little game called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Oh, man.
But I have not told you ahead of time what the theme will be. So
Okay.
you're brave enough to kind of roll with it and agree to do this. So I do have notes, and I may or may not have employed my friendly chatty to help me.
Yes.
But the theme, if you're ready for it, is famous gens.
Oh, okay.
So I figured that would be very appropriate to Jen Newmeyer to talk about famous gens. So I'll read you a clue, and you have to tell me which famous gen we're talking about.
Okay, let's do it.
We'll start super easy. Okay. So this particular gen became known for her haircut, and she also wore a lot of flair in the movie where a fax machine got a beating and met a violent end. Do people know what fax machine is? And now she plays a morning show anchor. But the giveaway is her haircut became a very trademark feature of her character. So it's a famous gen.
Is that Jennifer Aniston?
It is. Ding, ding, ding.
Okay. Thank you.
So this next gen is actually better known for tripping on her way up to Oscar stage than for winning an Oscar. And this gen is also happens to be very good at archery, in the competition that she was in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know which gen we're talking about?
I am drawing a blank. Who is it?
She's Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence, of course. Yes. Yeah,
that one. I always forget her last name. I was trying to think of a hint to give you. But.
Yes.
All right. Well, you have a chance to redeem it.
Okay, thank you.
Points. This is actually a double gen question.
Oh, okay.
And the reason it's a double gen is because these two gens were married to the same man at one point. The first gen played a CIA agent, and she's often described as America's sweetheart. She played a 13-year-old who unexpectedly gets her wish and is stuck as a 30-year-old. So that's gen number one, who was also married to the same person as the second gen, who is often described as being from the block. And she's much better at singing than she is. Two famous Jens.
Okay, I think the second Jen is Jennifer Lopez.
Yes, it is.
And the first Jen, I can't think
Jennifer
of the first-
Garner.
Jennifer Garner. Yes, of course. Yes. Well, you know what's interesting about Jennifer Lopez? She goes by J-Lo, and my maiden name is Longenecker. So at one point in my life, I was also a J-Lo.
That's a good fact. That's
Yes.
like a really good one to hold on to for, fun trivia.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, last Jen on our list.
Okay.
So before she landed herself on White Lotus, this Jen, or Jennifer, was the OG MILF. I don't know if I can say MILF on here, but I just did, a Stifler's mom. And she also learned how to bend and snap.
Yes, and she does all
right. You visualize.
Yes, I can see her face. Jennifer Coolidge.
Yes.
Yes.
You got it. So that was a fun game of famous Jens, and I just thought it would be a fun wait, don't tell me situation for Jen.
That was fun, Olga. Thank you.
Thanks for being such a good sport.
Of course, my pleasure. It was great.
Well, thank you for being on, and I look forward to continuing to have conversations about digital fundraising and trends we're seeing and running into you at all the different conferences.
That sounds great, Olga. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.